Hey folks, Steve here with another Case Yellow video for you today. We are going to be looking at turn 2 of the campaign and a couple of things I just want to hit out of the gate. I've enjoyed the comments that folks have left on the introduction video. I don't think too many have come in on the turn 1 video because that was just recently uploaded at the time I'm recording this, so appreciate that, guys. And I really had to laugh at user SGJ Jamie, I want to say was the username, who mentioned that, I'm really hardcore with this game. I left it set up and sit for 6 months, just like the historical situation. So that made me laugh pretty good. That was really clever. So thank you very much, Jamie, for that. I really, really appreciated that. It's very funny. So but I'm glad that we've gotten things rolling here. We're off to a pretty good start. Quickly, just a couple of turn 2 things that I need to watch out for. So generally now, the units that are on the board will need to they will need to be in range of a HQ. Well, they're referred to as attack supply units, but in my head, they're really functioning like HQs, headquarter units or something. Units will need to be within the range of a supply unit or some other source of attack supply in order to do attacks at full strength, except for units in the Netherlands, which can still attack supply. So importantly for the Germans, they can still, because they don't have a dedicated attack supply unit up there, they're still good for this turn, but next turn that is going to start to be a bit more of a problem, essentially. So we're going to have to watch out for that. But generally, we should be okay. It does put a timer on as the Germans, our activity in the Netherlands. We really need to capture one more city in the Netherlands, and then we'll do the terror bombing at the end of the turn, and that will cause the Netherlands to surrender. If for some reason we don't do that, by the end of the turn, we're going to have a mess of problems up there, and it could be reason to do like almost a restart if we don't do it, because that I could just see that being a really bad situation. Generally, otherwise, besides the we haven't quite nailed the Netherlands down situation. I think the Germans are generally doing well. We've made progress into Belgium. We've actually gotten right to the edge of the dial plan line by taking Namur, and we can bring the rest of these guys up and sort of have that opposed line against the Belgians into Antwerp and all of that. In the Ardennes, we are right at the cusp of breaking out or through the Ardennes. Now, we still have the Meuse River that is going to be a problem, and some bridgeheads that we're going to need to try to get and cross over the river this turn. It's going to be really important that we do that. It is critically important for the Germans and the rest of the game for them to get successfully across here. I think because this is the start of this turn is May 14th. I think if I were to compare where I'm at in the Ardennes to history, I'm either on track or maybe slightly ahead. But I really need to make sure that the rest of this activity or this push succeeds, or we're going to have some problems as the Germans. So I'll say, as short commentary, like, yeah, okay, the Germans are doing reasonably well here, but it doesn't feel like I'm this unstoppable juggernaut. Like, I'm looking at a lot of Allied units on the map. I can kind of ignore some of them because they're going to be moving, this direction up to the dial plan line, but I feel like I don't have that many German units. Like, I really don't have that many. Anything that goes wrong, any step losses are really just generally going to be bad for me. So it has to be high odds attacks. It has to be you know, guarantee we're not going to lose a step, because it doesn't feel like we can afford to lose a step, essentially. Even with the handful of replacements that we've got, I mean, those get used up very, very quickly. So just something we're going to watch out for. When it comes to the chit cup for turn 2, I should just get this out of the way. So again, the Germans are going to have initiative, so they're going to get to pick what their counter will be. And then the counter, or I guess the action round chit mix will be different. So from turns 2 through 10, excepting when we have Operation Dynamo or Vollrot, Case Red executed, the Germans will have 3 action rounds with their 3 action chits. Again, they can always pick 2 moves in a combat or 2 combats in a move. And the Allied player has just 2 action rounds, 1 move and 1 combat. So while both sides functionally were supposed to get 4 actions, and the Allies kind of missed out on 1 because of the chit order, now it's going to be a lot harder for everybody, but really this is worse off for the Allies. They are now much more limited in what they can do. It also means that generally these next so many turns, at least until we get to turn 3, where Operation Dynamo is going to start to matter, and we've got to think through what that looks like. The overall number of actions per turn is much reduced now, right? We're really talking about 5 action rounds, 3 German, 2 Allied, and there's a possibility that the Germans will somehow lose their 3rd chit if they get 3 in a row, I think. But that's maybe less likely to happen than likely. And so we're really going to be talking about 4 to 5 action rounds per turn, for the most part through the rest of the game, with a couple of exceptions. So everything will go much more quickly, and I think generally these videos should get shorter as we go, except when I've got to do the special turns like Operation Dynamo, where I'm going to have to be careful and slowly going through the processes and explaining the way that the rules work, because that stuff will matter in the big scheme. So first things first, we're going to end up having, well, I'm just going to get this out of the way. I think generally the Germans are going to be using the first chit to do movement, because these guys are going to do combat off movement, but I need to bring everybody else up, or else that the combat chits will be useless. So right away, I'm going to just put that on the action round track, but technically, the beginning of the turn, the action rounds start with the air phase. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but we're going to do the air phase. So the Operation Dynamo segment doesn't matter. The air set availability segment does. The Allies have both a French and a British air asset, so they are available. That's 1 more than last turn, so they have 2 total. The Germans are going to have 5 Luftwaffe counters. So on turn 1, they got 6. I've set 1 aside. Now they have 5 available. Now we have the Allied crossing interdiction segment. And I do think that the Allies are going to try, though I'm a little worried of how badly it's going to go. The thinking is going to be they want to disrupt the action down here. And what they're going to do is they're going to try to interdict right there. Make sure I have this. So it's gonna cause these guys to be out of supply, I think. Let me make sure that I'm gonna have this right, but I think they need to try. Yeah, I think they want to try to do it because these guys pushed over the river line And maybe they didn't need to do that, but they did anyway, which is maybe their folly here. Um, let's see. I don't think they have any other way to trace supply back over the river. So this is maybe my mistake. I went over the river too early, too soon, and the Allies have a chance to be a problem. Okay, so we're gonna use the British air asset for this, and we're gonna interdict this crossing right here in front of or behind Sedan. And so it doesn't look like there's any die roll modifiers for this. This is just a, if you roll a 1, then they lose the air unit for a while. 2 through 4 is a no. 5 and 6 are yes. But it does. Oh, it does mean the Allied air set is eliminated. Well, if we have a chance to really mess these guys up, I like the idea of delaying the German push through the Ardennes by a whole lot if these guys are going to get put out of supply, because supply is the next phase in the sequence of play, and supply now matters on turn 2. So they're going to give it a shot, and we'll see what happens. And I do roll a 6. Wow. Okay. So the air unit is eliminated. It's going to go 3 turns ahead on the turn track, which means it's going to go up on turn 5. We're going to put a crossing interdiction marker here, and that is going to be a problem. Wow. Okay. That's interesting. I think this is the right way to use the interdiction, right? Like, you're going to pick a place where the Germans do not have multiple ways to count a line of supply over a river, where they're a little out there, and you keep them from getting what they need. I think this is the right play. I think this is the right play. Now, importantly, with that complete, then we would go to the German paradrop segment. There are no more German paradrops. And now we have the Stuka dive bombing phase. So now, excuse me, we have a challenge here. I'm not sure what the best thing for these guys will be. If they can't trace the supply, that's so rough. Ugh. Out of supply units are going to have. Ay, ay, ay. Well, it doesn't look like there's a double penalty for not having a tax supply, so it'll just be these guys will be shifted. So I think we still need to use our Stuka in favor of the general crossings, honestly. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to use 3 of our 5 for dive bombing. We're going to hit here, we're going to hit here, and we're going to hit... Oh, see, this is going to be tricky. Okay, I guess I'm going to pick here. But yeah, this whole spot right down here is just tricky because these guys, there's some Maginot garrison. And so, like, the Zoc projection is going to continue to be a problem. So what really needs to happen is this German unit needs to get across the Meuse. These guys need to push through the Meuse, but they need to help clear over here so they can get supply over. This whole little triangle here is a very tricky spot to deal with. So, okay, we're going to do the Stuka dive bombing. And let's see, the first one, see, this is just straight up clear terrain. Any ground unit in target has a Oh yeah, what's their TR? 2 or less, because that's a +1, and they're just in clear terrain, so it's a +1. Okay, so we got a disruption in a DL1. So this guy's actually eliminated. Nice. That's great for the Germans. The Germans feel good about that. So this enables these guys, because they have higher TR2 by this, these guys could come out and swing around if they really wanted to. Though their supply situation might not be great. We basically got a clear path to get at least over the river over here. And may end up being more important for units that are going to come up behind these guys to help, is probably what's going to end up happening. Okay, then we've got here. Now, this isn't as good because this is... Okay, what kind of terrain is that? That's new. It looks like it's, I want to say broken. That is broken terrain. There's a different terrain type. So this is, right here is woods, and then there's forest, and then this is broken, it looks like. So there's some defensive works, and there's broken. Okay, so this unit is also a 2 or less, so those negate each other. So this is just a straight die roll. And no effect. So this guy's going to have to be fought. And then here, it's the same thing. This is going to be a straight die roll. And no effect either. So not a great showing from the Luftwaffe this turn. So no, the Stuka bombing, not great. Okay, so then we have the supply phase, which there's a couple of things we need to watch out for. So for, I believe it's the Dutch units are automatically supplied in the Netherlands. The Belgian units are supplied. They can trace a line of supply to Antwerp. Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I think generally supply check here is going to be pretty straightforward in terms of where the issues are going to be. So if we just take a look at, I'm going to grab some out of supply markers here. If we look at these poor guys who are beyond the river, even though this is only a minor river, they still can't trace supply over a minor river hex high. They need the bridge. Now, they can't go here because there's a Zoc. They can't go here because there's a Zoc and a garrison, and they can't go over this interdicted bridge. So these guys are out of supply. Now, what this means is these guys have to make sure that they're in supply by the turn 3 supply check, or there's going to be problems. So we have an opportunity to do something about that, but it is a pain in the butt. Next, in terms of being out of supply, unfortunately, our German units in the Netherlands have some problems. So, specifically, even these guys here in Breda are out of supply. So, when they go to count, they would go 1, uh-oh, there's a Zoc here across the minor river. Same thing with here. And then there's a whole bunch of Dutch units. So these guys can't trace a supply line over a river without a bridgehead. So these guys are out of supply. And you can imagine very easily the rest of these Fallschirmjägers are also out of supply. So it's going to be really important that the Germans do something to resolve these supply problems and basically continue to make a concerted effort to caused the Netherlands to fall. So as much as we have a lot of stuff going on, we really need to figure out a way to make the Netherlands collapse. Now, maybe I should have used some Stukas up there, but I kept two air units behind, or two air markers, however you want to look at it, for combat shifts. And I think the combat shifts are going to be really important in the Netherlands to make sure we seal the deal. But now we've got a situation where we need to make some crossings with the rest of our armored divisions, and they're going to need support too. So, tough decision for the Germans. This is not just easy street. We're just going to stomp, all over the Netherlands, or stomp all over the Allies. Like, we only have so many resources, we only have so many divisions, that we have to be very careful. And I think this gets to the in terms of commentary, the fact that Germany beat France the way that it did historically is like truly like an uncommon thing. Like, it probably shouldn't even have happened the way that it did, but a whole list of mistakes on the Allied side piled up for this victory, where, I mean, you run that play over and over and over again, those mistakes maybe don't get made, and the Germans get bogged down, and they really have a major problem on their hands. There's a whole thing I would recommend folks read there's an OCS game called the Blitzkrieg Legend that covers basically the same scenario, or the same campaign, but at the OCS level, which is much more complex. This is relatively lighter, though it has its own rules that you have to learn and all that. It talks about how it both sides, Germany and the Allies, both propagandized this campaign because it was like, oh, they used Blitzkrieg. They invented this new form of warfare, and we just couldn't handle it. And the Germans could, want to lean on that because they want to feel good about inventing this Blitzkrieg thing and all of that. When, if the Allies are leaning on the Blitzkrieg explanation, they don't have to own up to the mistakes that they could have fixed. And I try to give people, there's always jokes made about the French, but I mean, it wouldn't have taken that much more for the French to have given the Germans a much harder time in 1940 and dramatically changing the outcome of World War II. I mean, the Allies win, but they win sooner, or the Germans don't get anywhere near as far as they got historically, for all manner of different things there, right? So it's just one of those interesting things. That's why this campaign is so interesting, and why strategic level games like World in Flames have to have all these kind of weird special rules to deal with France, because it just didn't operate like the rest of the war in these things. But at different scales, it's much harder to portray that. At a global grand strategic scale, you need the combat system to work equally, and it all has to kind of work with each other, no matter if you're in France or Italy or Russia or wherever and you're fighting. But on an operational scale game where you can be a little more zoomed in, you can treat things with a little bit more nuance, with more chrome or special rules that can help govern the way this is all panning out. So anyway, that's a whole lot of tangent from me. I'm sorry. We're going to keep moving here past the supply phase, which leads us right into the action phase. So we're now at the action phase. Again, I'm going to have the Germans do a move action, and then I'm going to take myself off camera. I'm going to take care of those moves. We're going to see stuff, and we'll look at the aftermath, and we'll start drawing chits from the cup. So yeah, we'll be right back. Okay, so here we are after the movement. So you can see there's a general advance. The infantry are coming up behind using the roads for the Ardennes. We do have some guys that are backing up these panzers that are having supply problems. But we're not going to move back. We're going to hold the position. We might even try to attack here. I'm just not totally sure if that's for sure what we want to do. Now, my assumption is that I'm going to get over the river over here as well. So here's what's happened. I've come across by, what is that, Dinant? I've come across. I'm ignoring some of the Zocs, and I'm able to kind of get over here. So now I've got two attacks, or I'm sorry, two stacks that can do an attack on this this crossing here, and I'm going to need it because it's kind of well defended. And then we're maintaining a presence in Dinant just so that the French can't try to like cross over and nab it and create further problems for me. And then what should happen here is if I do my mobile attack, clear this, I've got two ways of getting supply over the Meuse, and then it's not as important. I can eventually push my way through here, and as long as I can get out into this zone, I'll likely have some supply tracing, and Allied, interdiction will be minimized. We're going to have multiple crossings set up, so we should be okay there. These guys came from Namur. I had moved other Germans in here to hold the town. Other units are generally moving forward, though they're much slower to oppose the Allies at the dial line. And then for the Germans here, I mean, it's sort of a general push forward. We're going to have to try some risky attacks over the next couple of impulses or rounds. But I do have some motorized units here set up to do an attack here. I do have to roll for the bridgehead. I forgot to do that. They get one. Okay. So these guys get a bridgehead, and I'm trying to see. I think I already rolled for these guys. They did not get one. And then I can try to do one here, but I don't think it will be of much use because I'd have to roll, I think, a 6. Or no, I can't even get it. Yeah, I can't even get a bridgehead here, so there's no point in rolling. Okay, so all that said, okay, so they got a bridgehead here. They didn't get one down here. These guys are moving forward. So the idea for, and I know this is far away, so it's going to be hard for you guys to see and appreciate here. The idea is these guys push here, either eliminate or beat back this Netherlands unit such that we get across the river, and now we have, I mean, we've sort of already done it. We've sort of already opened up a supply line with these guys, but the general idea is to knock this out so these motorized units can continue on and basically help take Rotterdam as our, final city needed to cause the collapse of the Netherlands. Now, we've still got other potential things happening up here, but I'm not counting on that as much as I'm counting on the motorized units taking Rotterdam. And I think that's pretty historical. I want to say that that's going to roughly meet the historical thing where, like, we've seized enough of the Netherlands. The motorized units enable us to cut up through here, grab Rotterdam, and then terror bomb or threat. I think historically they threatened to terror bomb Den Haag or something like that, and that's the Netherlands surrendered at that point. So that's going to be pretty historical if we can achieve it this turn. I'm not 100% confident that we will, but we'll see. And then everything else is in pretty good shape. So let me take care of the combats, the motorized combat. So we have one here, and then we're going to have one here, and I think that's it. I could try to do something here, but that is 1, 2, 3 shifts, 4 shifts for what would be 9 to 3. So 3 to 1, 4 shifts down to, yeah, that I don't feel very comfortable with that attack. And we could maybe get, let's see, can I use the armor shifts? I don't know. I'll think through it. I won't waste time on camera. We'll come back with the combats complete. Okay, so the motorized combats, we did get a DL1 result. So this guy's pushed back. We've still got some potential supply problems because he continues to put out a Zoc over here. But I think in the next action round we should be able to do do something. It does make it so that combat as the next action is probably going to be preferred, but we'll see. Over here, we did cleanly get across the river. This guy took a step loss. I mean, it was a DE result, but core can't be destroyed. So he took 2 hexes in retreat and became disrupted. Here, I actually used the rest of my air trying to make something happen here, and I got a C result. And a C is contact. Oh, I guess, okay, actually, I do have higher TR, so this would be actually a DR result. So let me see if that terrain really would have made a difference here. Reduced retreat. Maybe I can ignore, or maybe it's it only affects it if they retreat back into it. I think that's what it is. Gosh darn it. Okay, we're not dealing with a defensive line. We're dealing with a defensive works, which is distinct. And I guess that's what's confusing. Okay, so no, he does have to, he would have had to retreated. And the question now is, you know, do I have them advance? I mean, I think we just go ahead and do that. They're still out of supply. And this destroys this here. So we're across the river, but I mean, there's a bunch of supply problems that are going to have to be rectified pretty quickly. Okay. And I wonder if I should be putting a no attack supply marker on here, but the effect of out of supply is the same, and they were out of supply, so to me it seems redundant to do that. And if somebody knows a reason why I should still do that, let me know. But in the logic of the game seems to dictate that it doesn't matter. And the attack supply unit is here for those guys. Okay, so I think we're good. Trying to see if there's anything else. Then I think we just go to the cup now. We did the move. I don't think there's any other bridgehead things that I need to concern myself with, at least for the moment. So, gosh, I think we're good. I think we're good. So we're going to go to the cup. Now, I think the Germans would probably like a combat right now. Would certainly help them make some additional gains against the Netherlands. But we get a allied combat ship. So what this means is that the Germans are definitely going to be able to get all 3 of their action shits. And it is combat. The Allies don't get a choice one way or the other. Now, because we are required to do attack supply, except for the Netherlands. Generally, the Netherlands are fine. We're going to have to pay attention to where the attack supply units are for each given side. There's this one here for the Allies, which kind of, it's close enough. I think they're going to be fine. Belgian units can use Antwerpen for attack supply. British units may trace attack supply 3 hexes to an Allied-controlled port. French can use 8 hexes to Paris, and the French and British can use the French attack supply unit. Okay. So, will the Allies do any attacks? That's probably a fair thing here. By 2. Okay. If this reduced by 2, then they still would have been ahead on TR. Okay. Let's see. What's interesting is that units that are out of supply on defense, it doesn't appear that there's a shift for that. And I'm trying to double check that, because that seems really interesting. Because it's going to be, whether or not the French tried to do an attack is really going to be predicated on, oh no, they do. Okay. 1 shift to the right, 1 or more defending units is out of supply. Okay. So that is going to matter on whether or not the French decide to attack anywhere, or attempt some sort of counterattack at all. But I'm feeling like they're still not in a good position to do anything. Like, anywhere I look on the board, I just can't see where a counterattack would be feasible. Maybe here 10. Oh no, probably not. They could maybe try to slow the Germans down a little bit. If they try to take Namur back. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to go off camera and just see if they want to do any combats. I'm not sure there's going to be many, maybe in the Netherlands. Okay, here we are after the Allied combat. The only combat I ended up doing was I did 2 combats in the Netherlands. I almost did here to here, but it would have really required using the last remaining Allied air unit to try to shift something, and we wouldn't have really guaranteed to make much of a gain. And so they opted not to try to strike back, just knowing that they'd probably lose some steps across these 5 movement units, which we may need to get up to Antwerp, or I'm sorry, Dunkirk. So, assuming it's going to be Dunkirk, that is our evacuation port. But the Netherlands, in the Netherlands, the Dutch decided they'd try to kill some of these German paratroopers. They did succeed, though it cost them. So from Rotterdam to here, which actually had worse odds after computating everything together, but they did basically cause a DL1, which removed the paratrooper that was out of supply, and then there was an attack from here to here, which was better odds, but actually load roll enough that both sides killed each other, basically. So, boom, boom, they're gone. Is that ideal? Well, taking out this unit helps, because now it means that the Germans don't have a bridgehead towards Rotterdam. That's kind of a big deal. But losing the unit back here means that, once this unit is eliminated, it's going to clear the way, basically, for the Germans to do what they need to do. Now, what I wonder is, at this point, if these guys go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in a move, they could still potentially take Rotterdam. So whether or not the Germans want to do a move action next or a combat, when it's their action. I mean, at this point, I do generally feel like it almost doesn't matter. Like the Germans are going to likely get Rotterdam if the die rolls go right. I think it just matters when will the Allied move come up, and will that make a difference for anything else. So we'll go to the cup and we'll draw the next chit, and we do get a German chit. So I'm kind of debating what I want to do here. I think given the game position right now, movement is probably the best course of action, because it means we're going to, again, likely get something set up for Rotterdam. It won't necessarily matter what the Allies do after that. And again, if I count it out with these guys, they can ignore this guy because of their troop value or troop rating, whatever, tactics rating. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have a movement point left over to do an attack. They'll be able to see if they get a bridgehead and very likely take Rotterdam. And then the additional movement with everybody else will just mean that they're more likely going to make sure to retain a supply line here around the Netherlands. These guys can continue to move up, consolidate. These guys can continue to push out and potentially break open the path for the sickle cut. And I was trying to look like, what is the path of the sickle cut? We're going to be taking like it in my head. The way this is probably going to work is we're going to come through here, through the clear terrain, get to St. Quentin, and then up through here to Abbeville. In terms of the like full, if we're going to cut all the way out, but then what I'm not really sure about, I'm like, do I even have enough units to like really even do that? Like, I don't know. It makes me wonder, like, what is the right course of action? The more units we eliminate, the fewer there are to get out in the evacuation port. But it just makes me like, am I biting off more than I can chew? If I just choose not to, evacuate, and just tie up the Germans, can I just keep them from making any gains? But I need the victory points from evacuation, because once the Germans are through here, it's highly unlikely that the Allies are going to be able to punch back through to get back into supply and defend Paris. So I guess, I mean, it is the sickle cut situation, right? Like I'm gonna see the supply issue. These guys are not going to be able to come back around in time and could have attack supply issues. So I'm better off victory point wise evacuating, probably, right? Like you would think that's probably what will need to occur, but I don't know. So, okay, I'm going to do the German move, and what I'll go ahead and do, if I do combats with the movement, I'm just going to do the combats off camera so this video isn't super long, and we'll just see the aftermath of the German move action. Okay, here we are after the German move, and some combats did occur. So, the Germans did successfully take Rotterdam, which effectively means, like, the Netherlands are done. There's really nothing that the Allies can do that will change the situation in the Netherlands. We're going to choose to terror bomb a city. It's going to cost, well, it's going to give, put it this way, it's going to give the Allies a couple victory points. It'll give us a couple victory points. Technically, that's not good because we need double the Allies. But what's more important is we need to shut the Netherlands down. So it's kind of coming up a wash. But the sooner that the Netherlands are shut down, the easier it will be to have all focus everywhere else, and we're not going to need to worry about supply and attack supply and all these goofy things. So it's good that we are going to do it. We're going to need to do the terror bombing. I'm not sure anything else would have made this any better. I don't think that I'll have to double check, but there's nothing I think that will have really made a difference if we would have been able to avoid the terror bombing. We would have had to have done something a lot more, I guess. Everywhere else, it's just movement to secure the position, to keep the Belgians from getting too sneaky. There's not much they can do there. This bridgehead's done. So just moving into a position where this is sort of our anvil, and the hammer's coming through here, so setting up a line that we'll probably look at attacking towards Antwerp at some point soon. You can see the big significant thing is pushing through here, where we were able to avoid Zox, get set up for a good push, got these guys nearly out to St. Quentin, or Saint Quentin, however you want to pronounce that. There is a disrupted French unit here that's kind of in really bad shape, and there's probably not much to be done about it. We've got this whole string of units kind of strewn about here that are surging out and basically going to be that drive. And when we look at like how far away am I, these units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I guess they can't get, it would have been nice to get up to here. I don't think I was going to be able to get up to there. If I counted right, maybe I didn't count the best. It was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. I don't think I could have gotten here. Maybe I'll double check that, but I don't think I will have been able to get out here. But it gives me, like, within the next couple of movements in turn 3, we will have made a decisive cut around and can begin pushing in some direction either way. I did forget to put some reinforcements on, so I brought them on now. I'm trying to get them moved into place. But I don't know. It is what it is. I guess technically they should each have another move, so it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Okay, so we did all of that. So we're set up so that if we draw German combat, we can just nuke this guy, and maybe we can do. Oh, and I did attack here. Even being out of supply, I was able to push out. So there's something to, like, I don't know. Being out of supply isn't that bad. Like, it's not great. It's not great, but it's just a shift. So if you've got overwhelming force and the guys are out of supply, you might as well push. So I'm pushing out, and if we get the German combat ship, we can attack here and secure an open supply line. We can push, we can attack here and kind of help that situation. And we can even look at attacking elsewhere to soften up the Allies. So just in general, we're in a pretty good spot. I do not think I'm going to be able to get an Den Haag via any mechanism at this point. So that's just going to have to be the way that it is. Okay, so that's it for the German move. So now it is going to be the chit pull. Germans would like to go first or go next so that they can clear out the terrain. But what do we get? We actually get the Allied move. So the Allied move is going to occur. They're going to get some reinforcements. Turn 2 reinforcements for the Allies is actually not too bad. They get some weak divisions. The French get a corps. As you can see here, variety of things. I'll have to look and see where these guys can go. And then we'll do the movement. I want to say some of the moving into the dial plan stuff is going to be done here soon, but I'm not 100% sure of that. So let me go get ready and we'll see what the Allies can do. Okay, here we are after the Allied move. Really, it's hard to figure out what to do here. They did have some reinforcements come on, so the British had some. I set them up over here out of Boulogne and have set them up to kind of slow down the potential for the sickle cut. I likewise moved some French units over here to cover the crossings on these river lines. Also backed up a unit from Rez to Soissons, because these guys were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 2 moves from Paris, basically. So we're throwing up some guys at the crossings. The French did have a reinforcement that we're sending up from the south hex line. The idea is to get them into Paris as soon as possible. We can pull 1 unit per turn off the Maginot Line area, which is demarked here. So I moved the guy over so he can start coming over to try to screen Paris however we can. We did back up the disrupted unit, and these guys just moved such that we're going to force the German stack here to attack into this broken terrain to maintain its supply. If I try to be sneaky and just go here, I don't project a Zoc into this hex, and if we fail to interdict as the Allies next turn, these guys will be in supply. And we only have the 1 air unit, so we're going to bank on our 1 air unit trying to interdict. And, well, you know, that might go poorly, and then basically we don't have any air for the rest of the turn next turn because the British planes are out of sync for the moment. So it seems like the only real way to keep the supply line here in danger is to move here and force the attack. Everywhere else, it's just trying to figure out how do we hold the Germans in enough that these guys have a clean retreat path. And I think that's the best that I can do, right? So we have some Zoc projection around here. There's still gaps, so like these guys could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then let's see, light. I forget what it is for light. Oh, just regular woods is 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But at least they're not in Paris itself, and we'll likely be able to get some units in here by then. So it's awfully tricky. Like we are so close to having a big rush out, but I don't think we're going to be able to do it. Well, maybe we can. I don't know. It's a near run thing, right? But that's good. We want it to be a near run thing. So that's it for the Allied move. No motorized combats. None of them make sense because whatever damage we might be able to ping the Germans for is 1 less step that we're going to get off the continent for victory points. So I don't think it makes sense for there to really be any major attacks. There is the attacking rule. I should point out, you can't do a multi-hex attack unless every enemy that's in the Zoc of an attacker is being attacked somehow. Now, this rule shows up in other Dark Series games. It shows up in a few other Ted Racer games, even other war games that are not designed by Ted Racer, where you ideally are doing like 1 hex to 1 hex attacks. And if you're doing any multiple hex attacks, it's because these guys on the flank are free to do so. They're not potentially engaged by anybody else. So it's a rule that is hard to explain. Like, you can read the rule and go, okay, that's kind of weird. And you try to to explain it is more difficult than the intuitive, yeah, these guys are facing other guys. They can't just team up. Like, this guy can't attack here in a 3 hex attack here because these guys are on the flank. That's basically the easiest way to explain it. But anyway, so that's it. So we're going to go and we're going to just pull the last chit out of the cup, which is German combat. It has to be German combat. So I'm going to take care of these combats off camera, and then I'm going to start to do the end phase stuff. So we'll at least come back once more before the end of the video. Okay, hey guys, here is where things stand after the end of the German combat, and then we've started the end phase. So you can tell that something's different. The Dutch units are gone, so yes, we decided to go ahead and terror bomb Utrecht. That gives us the required conditions for Dutch surrender. So now they are surrendered, they are out, and those units can begin to come downward. though going into next term, we're going to have to maintain a garrison. I'll worry about that later. I'm sure that I have enough at this point. It's just going to be a matter of situating those guys appropriately and then moving everybody else to the south. Other combats, we did push the French back over here. We're actually going to cut this guy out of supply due to the river positioning. And then in the south down here, the Germans did attack. We did force these guys back. They kind of moved out and around, and so they're very likely going to be just fine for supply going into turn 3. And then for the end phase, we did the Dutch surrender. We've replaced some of the refugees. I maybe could have moved some more around a little bit. I'm still trying to figure out where is the best place to put some of these. I think my main thing is I just want to keep wherever I can, and maybe I need to, I don't know, I need to shift something around. I think maybe we'll shift something so that it's like this to make it harder for the Allies to kind of get into these zones. Though it's tricky to figure out like what even makes sense, honestly. I don't know. And then I also did the victory points. So the Allies got quite a bit, actually. They got 2 for the terror bombing. They got 3 for the line of communication between Boulogne, Calais, or Dunkirk and the west or south edge of the map. So those guys are still just fine and dandy. And then I think those were really the main ones. So the Allies now have 8 victory points. The Germans picked up 2 for the surrender of the Dutch, but gosh, we're still at a victory point deficit. We need to get some more victory points from somewhere, and it's still a bit early yet to figure out where they're going to come from. I had placed we did the victory points, and now we're going to do armor attrition. And then we'll do replacements, but it really will be it for the turn. So we'll do the Allies first, just to get them out of the way. So we'll pull, and we get the 3rd DLM. So they come out of the cup, and the third DLM. DLM. Okay, so 3rd DLM is here, so they take a step. That's unfortunate, and then we have to pull another one because we have to lose 2 steps. So we pull, and we get the 3rd DCR, which, ooh, they've actually taken a hit already once before. 3rd DCR, uh-oh. That's one of these guys protecting Soissons. So that's not great for them. The Germans also have to lose 2 steps, I believe, so we'll go ahead and pull, and we get the 10th Panzer Division. And gosh, I bet I am not going to know where the 10th Panzer Division is. Oh, way out here in our spearhead. That's unfortunate. And then we'll do another one, which is 5th Panzer Division, which, let's see, 5th is here, so that's not good either. That's kind of a bummer to see these guys taking the attrition. Very punishing, really. You have to draw until 2 armor type steps are lost. That's just brutal. Every turn, you lose 2 steps, no matter what. That's just killer. Wow. Okay. Okay. So next, we're going to have the replacement segment. So I think the Allies are certainly going to use their last armor replacement to beef these guys up to protect Paris. going to be needed to put a stop to the Germans somehow, or at least have something to get in their way. We still have French infantry replacements, so I think we'll spend one to flip this guy to full strength. And then do we have any others? Oh, we could replenish a unit. And I'm not sure, let's see. Maybe in this case we're gonna spend or replace one of our replacement points to rebuild one of the infantry corps that was destroyed, and it'll come back with one step next turn, and we'll hold the other replacements in reserve for right now. The Germans have still have 3 infantry replacements, and I don't think we actually have any German infantry that we can return strength for. I think everybody is. Oh, I guess this guy should have been put somewhere. Do here. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think we have any step losses missing from German infantry right now. I think everybody is topped off. So no reason to do anything there. The Germans can hold on to their replacement points. And that brings us, I believe, to the end of the turn. So there you go, guys. Turn 2 of Case Yellow. We have seen now the Netherlands is knocked out of the war. The Belgians are still in it, but we may be able, as the Germans, to apply some more pressure to get into Antwerp at some point. And next turn begins the time period in which Operation Dynamo can be declared. So I think it's going to be really interesting to figure out, like, what did the Allies do? Because I think as the Germans now, we have a pretty straightforward goal here, right? Like, we're in a really good position that we could head north or south, right? We could focus on the sickle cut. We could focus a bunch of victory points on getting into Paris. You know, can we do both? Well, probably not. I don't think. The problem is, if you go big on one, you're sacrificing the other. So if we go big on Paris, we give the Allies a great opportunity to get a lot of victory points evacuating people. If we go and concentrate on trying to break the line around the evacuation port and try to take the evacuation port or whatever, we're maybe giving up the opportunity to get into Paris. So it feels like either place, you know, if we're denying the British victory points, that's good. If we just get into Paris and we get a bunch of victory points, that's good. But you got to remember, in terms of the grand strategy, if we need to have double the number of victory points as the Allies to win as the Germans, what that basically means is every time the Allies get a victory point, it means we have to get twice as many later down the road. And so you can kind of think of it as each Allied victory point is worth twice as much as a German victory point. So if we don't push hard on trying to take this stuff out, if we don't do that and we just grab the stuff for Paris, that's, hey, the Paris victory points are great. But if the Allies get just as many victory points for evacuation, they're going to win. We are, in terms of victory points, the Germans have to work out of a deficit. Right now, the Allies have 8 victory points. We would need 16 to win, and we only have 2. Now, there are plenty of other ways for the Germans to get victory points, but if it gets to the point where the Allies get, I think, close to like 30 victory points, there's no way for the Germans to win. So we really are going to have to make some tough calls on which way do we send these guys. Do we send all of them one way? Do we split the difference? Which is a good move? I truly don't know. But we'll figure that out as we get into turn 3. So this was turn 2, May 14th to the 17th. Next turn we will be at May 18th through the 21st. So we'll see how it goes, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think. If there's anything that you want to comment on or have a thought on the game or played it before, just let me know, and we'll go from there. So take care, guys. Keep on gaming.